Hello and welcome to another episode of It's a Long Road, the Rambo Series Podcast. This is First Blood, Nothing is Over, Part 3. And with me today, I have first-time guest co-host Bill Persurchia. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. Hey, thanks for volunteering to come on when I put the call out there for any of my listeners to join this reboot of sorts. It's a reboot, fandom, trivia, all that good stuff. If people have heard the first two episodes, they're catching on what's going on here. And Bill, he put his name in the hat and said, hey, I'd love to throw my hat in the ring and come on the show. So Bill, before we get going, have you ever been on a podcast before?
Never. This is my first time.
Wow, look at you. I think you're 3 for 3. I think the last 3 individuals have been first-time podcasters. I know my fourth guest. I'm pretty sure my fourth guest, he's been on the podcast before. But Bill, this is a very brave of you. I know it's not easy to put your face out there and your voice out there, but you'll be fine. You're in good hands, I promise you.
Absolutely.
And so, Bill, where are you from?
I am originally from Livingston, New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. I've lived in New Jersey my whole life, but originally from Livingston. Currently, I live in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. That's Bergen County.
Okay. All right. My sometime guest co-host on, I don't know if you ever listened to Doug.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard you guys talk before. And I remember him from when you had him on, I think the first time you had him on the Rambo Series Podcast early on. And then when you brought him on as your new co-host recently.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Do you listen to the Frank Stallone coverage?
I do, actually. Yeah, I listened all the way through from the very beginning up until your most recent episode, except for the last one I didn't get a chance to listen to yet. But yeah, I'm caught up all the way. I've listened all the way along, all the coverage you've done, all the movies and the cartoon coverage you did, and then the Frank Stallone stuff you've done. I've listened to all of it.
I appreciate you listening to the Frank Stallone stuff. It's fun to do with Doug. The reason why I brought up Doug is that he's from Jersey. So yeah, you should go say hi to him for me because I have yet to meet him. So one day.
If I ever run into him, I will.
If you run into him, hopefully it's not on the bad side of the law.
No, I haven't done that. It's always been good interactions, luckily for me.
Yeah. All right, good. I'm just curious how you came across the Rambo podcast. Were you looking for podcasts or how did they stumble across your existence there?
I've been a fan of the movie series from when I was a little kid. And I got into podcasts a few years ago. And one day I just said, let me see if there's a Rambo podcast out there, because there's podcasts for everything. And so I just typed in Rambo in the search and yours came up and I clicked on it. And I think you had just started it. You were getting ready to air your first episode and you did like a preview of the first episode where you interviewed David Morrell, the author of First Blood, which was really cool. I was able to hear that. And then I followed you all along as it went. I listened to the first episode, how you were going to cover all the movies one at a time, and just got into it from there and just kept on listening as it went along.
Oh, wow. Well, I appreciate your support. I'm always curious as a very small-time podcaster. I'm just curious, not for clout or anything. I'm just genuinely curious, how do people find the show? Because I don't have any paid ads. I don't have any paid algorithms or big podcasters. They pay for stuff to get the word out there. So it's really organic. So the fact that I think you and a few others, that's what they did. They literally Googled or searched in the podcast search app, Rambo podcast. So when I started this journey, I think I mentioned when I first started this series, was I noticed there wasn't a long running Rambo podcast. Of course, a lot of film review podcasts, there are a dime a dozen out there, and I'm a part of that dozen, where they review like standalone episodes will be the one film. The one episode will be one film. So I thought, it'd be nice to do a deep dive into the Rambo franchise. So I dare say I probably am the only podcast that's done the deep dive into the franchise, for better, for worse. It's been a lot of fun. And of course, when it did end, I was, it's sad when it's over, but you don't want to drag it out to the point of just for the sake of, because I make no money off this. It's literally just time. It's a fun hobby, but I don't want to drag my listeners through. That's partly why I do the Frank Stallone stuff, because I just have so much fun podcasting in general. But with the Rambo coverage, I was like, it's over. It is over. The film has ended. But then, of course, the trivia book came out. This is the whole point of this reboot, was this trivia book came out from Rocco. I'm like, hey, this is perfect. I could reinvestigate the series with the completely new guests. And you guys have already shown me some insights and discussion points that I didn't bring up at the podcast. So nothing is truly over. This is episode 3 of First Blood. And there's only one more episode left of First Blood. Again, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to be like Bill, there's still a few spots open, specifically in parts 4 and 5. I have spots open regarding the trivia and coverage for those because I'm only doing 4 episodes per film. I'd love to have some of my first-time guests come back. It's not a question of not having them come back. It's just I want a plethora of voices, and if you want to come on the podcast to be a part of that voice, let me know. Okay, so Bill,
Yes.
when did you first become a fan? Let's say a fan of Stallone overall. Or was it the Rambo series? Was it a different film? How did that journey start for you?
I've been a fan of Sylvester Stallone's probably since I was a little kid. For me, it started with Rocky.
Yeah.
And I probably became aware of Rocky and Rambo about the same time, maybe a couple of years apart. But I remember watching mostly on cable at first, the Rocky movies that they had on cable. The first one I became aware of at the time was Rocky 3. And then from there, it went on. And for Rambo, I was actually thinking about it this morning. I was probably in about the 2nd or 3rd grade when it came out. Trying to think, it was 82, so I was about 5 years old. So I didn't even know about the first movie when it came out.
Sure.
I think I found out about it through probably when Rambo 2 came out.
Right.
I was a few years older. I guess I was about in the 3rd grade. So that's when I first became aware of Rambo. And I remember the cartoon. I remember watching it before school. My neighbor across the street, we used to carpool back and forth. So her mother would take us to school sometimes. And I remember watching it in the morning, waiting for us to be ready to go to school. And I had the lunchbox too, the Rambo thermos lunchbox.
Oh, wow.
Lunchbox. I had that. That's how I became aware of it, was through Rambo 2. And then my friend who was across the street, her older brother had recorded First Blood on TV and had a VHS copy that he had recorded off TV. So she loaned it to me. And that's how I became aware of First Blood, because I knew there was a part 2. So I was like, what's part 1? So I found out about First Blood, and then it just took off from there. And
Nice.
I've been a Stallone fan ever since. It started with Rocky and then Rambo and then everything else after that.
Very similar journeys. I think I'm a couple years older, but because I was 7 or 8 when First Blood came out. But like you, I think a lot of people were introduced to Rambo because of part 2. I know First Blood came out, but obviously first, but I think a lot of people were almost surprised that Rambo was a sequel to First Blood because it seemed like such a standalone action film in the 80s that, oh, hey, this is a sequel. Let's be honest, it really is such a different flavored film than the first film.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think even the Rocky franchise had that little bit of, like you talked about Rocky 3. Rocky 3 for me was the first one I saw in the theater. I'm pretty sure I saw the first couple at home. Again, I was very young, but when Rocky 3 came out, I was big into wrestling. And so it's that right age of going to the theater. It's a little bit of an action-packed type film compared to the first 2 films. So I think a lot of people our age is what I'm getting at. So our young age group got into the sequels before the more dramatized first films, both franchises. Yeah. So what's your overall fandom of First Blood? Where do you hold it in your echelon of films?
It's one of my favorites overall, but it's also, I think, my favorite of the series. I like it best because I think for his character, he seems to be the most human. He shows the most emotion at the end when he has that final scene. But it's, of course, like just more, he seems the most human that he ever is in that film because it's not over the top too much. I suppose it could happen. It is a little crazy, but it's not as crazy as it gets later on. It gets more and more outrageous as it goes on into the series and the things that he does. But it's not inconceivable that first movie could happen to a person. His emotions, you can see, because he doesn't speak a lot in the movie. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but you can see a lot of emotion in his face.
Yeah.
How he reacts to things. It's all in his eyes. That's why it's my favorite film is the way he acted it. And he seems the most human in that film that he ever is, with his emotions and just being a regular human being and not like a not like a hero, but like just a, I don't know, like
human. He was superhuman in those sequels 2 and 3 in particular, but I totally agree. And we talked about, of course, during our coverage of the first film and in the podcast, but we mentioned how that the non-verbal acting is still acting. People equate, you have to talk a lot to act, but non-verbal expressions, body language, that's a big part of acting. And I don't think I could pull off that stoicism, PTSD, all that stuff that Stallone showed on his face. It was just his eyes. We talked about that. I remember his eyes in First Blood. It spoke volumes in many scenes. Awesome. We're going to get into the trivia. So here we go. So you got a pen and paper?
I do, actually. Let me grab that.
I keep forgetting. The funny thing is I'm grading myself in every episode, but I keep forgetting to write down my guess results. So get your pen and pencil ready to go here. Where class is in session. How did you fare in the first episode that you listened to? How did you fare with the questions? Do you recall?
I did actually pretty well. I got most of them right. I might have got one or two where I wasn't exactly correct, but I'm pretty sure I was spot on with most of the questions, actually, surprisingly.
Now, I know you haven't heard the episode 2 yet that came out. Those questions were brutal. You'll hear the episode, and my co-host and I at the time, we were blown away how difficult those questions were. It brought out great discussions, fun to talk about. And also, for the record, I'm losing horribly against my guests right now, but let's see that. Let's see if that trend continues today. Okay, here's the first question. According to the sheriff, what was Rambo charged with? I'm trying to remember when he actually verbalized it. I know they did the fingerprints down in the jail cell, and they were saying you got to clean yourself up for the judge. I'm just trying to remember. Oh, I think I remember now. I think it's when Teasel walks in with Rambo into the station. He goes, "Here he is. Book him for XYZ." I believe that's what.
Right. Yeah. He comes in and he's carrying his stuff that he took off of him, and he brings him over to the desk, and they start booking him and all of that, and then they bring him downstairs to get him cleaned up. First part when he walks in with them and basically just tells him what he wants him to charge him with.
I think we both have the same answer for one of the charges, but I feel like there was another. See, I don't want to hint you too much. I think there's more than one. Do you have more than one charge?
Actually, let's see. I have 1, 2.
Oh, yes.
3. There's 3 charges.
Okay, I got to up my game here. I'm going to put 3 as well. I just don't know if this third one.
Yeah, there's 3. There's 3 charges that he tells him to charge him with.
All right, next question. In what direction do the police believe that Rambo's hiding? I think what Rocco's referring to here is when they're in the army tent and they're trying to get a read on Rambo's location. Is that what you're thinking?
That's exactly what I was thinking, because they're in the tent. He's got I guess it's like a radar station. Right. It's not really radar. It's more, I guess, I'm not sure how they're tracking him either. Maybe with the radio.
Yeah, we talked about, I think, in our discussion about what was the actual technology they were using, because Rambo's on a two-way army radio, and they've got this radar beacon, like almost like they're tracing a phone call. They figure the signal, which I don't understand why they have a beat or a signal on that one walkie-talkie when there's so many in the area. Because think of all the search groups all have walkie-talkies. How they were able to isolate Rambo's out of the mess, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just
movie magic.
Yeah, exactly. Suspension of disbelief.
Teasel, I believe, says, "Hey, we got him. He's blank in the woods," or he's blank. Is that what you're thinking, that scene?
That is the scene, but I'm trying to remember what direction he said, and it's not coming to me, but let me see.
Well, I'm putting down a compass direction. I think that's the idea, that he's blank in that area. He's that way in that area.
Okay, so I'm going to say, I'll just take a guess here.
Yeah, I'm taking a guess too as well. Okay. Where was Troutman, number 23? Where was Troutman before he came to help locate Rambo?
Okay.
Now, I know he mentions a place, but I can't remember if it was the place that he was legitimately there before he came. Because didn't Rambo say he came to visit him as well at a place?
Yes, he did mention there was a fort that he was trying to find him at, and he said that the people that he spoke to never knew where to find Colonel Troutman. They didn't know where he was.
I think I've got, I don't want to say the name, but I think I have that name as that's where Troutman. No, that doesn't make sense, because if Rambo went there.
Where he's been after that, he goes, "I've been here." And I guess that's nobody could get a hold of him. I don't know why exactly they couldn't get a hold of him, because you'd think the army would know where he was anyway.
This is fun to at least talk it through a little bit, because I'm seeing the scene in my mind. Now, for the record, you just saw this film yesterday, right?
I've seen it I don't know how many times.
Of course.
I've watched it, I don't know, I'm exaggerating, millions of times it seems. And my wife has never seen any of the films. And so I've been slowly introducing her to a lot of them. We've just finished watching all the Rocky films, because she had never seen any of those. She was never much of a movie person, I guess, before I met her. I've always been a movie person. I've grown up watching movies and always loved them. Watched all the Rocky movies with her, and we watched First Blood for the first time, or for her first time, maybe about 3 weeks ago. And then I hadn't seen it again, and I refreshed my memory with it, watched it last night to refresh. But yeah, I've seen it so many times, I could probably tell you, even if I didn't watch it last night, because it's just I don't know why.
No, it's fine. I've seen it many times too, but I just like anything, your memory's only what it is for so long.
Yeah.
The little details like what was that place? Where did he go? And I'm almost, I would say embarrassed, but I'm surprised about how much stuff I don't remember. The questions are hard. For example, I know you missed the last episode, but one of the questions last episode, let's see here. Oh, here's one. I'm actually curious if you remember. This one that threw me off and I got it wrong. Is Troutman a smoker?
Oh.
You just saw this yesterday, so this is what I mean.
I'm trying to think, because there was a scene in the bar after all the craziness, and he was just having a drink. But I'm going to say no. I don't believe he is. I don't think. Well, no, wait a minute. Let me think. Now, is he a smoker as of like first movie you're talking about, or are we talking about?
Yeah, this is First Blood questions. These are only First Blood questions.
I'm trying to think, because for some reason I have in my head like a vision of him smoking a cigar or something at one point, but I don't think. Maybe. Oh, geez. All right, I'm going to just say I don't think he's a smoker, but I could be wrong. For some reason, like I said, there's an image of him with a cigar, but I don't know if that's from First Blood or not. I don't think it is. I'm not sure.
See, this is what I love about memory. This is fascinating. And I only say it's not to point this out at you, because I've seen this movie like you 100 times since I was 8 years old. Yeah. And you're right about the bar. It's funny how your brain is like, the bar, Bill, the bar, because that's where he was holding the cigar. He was holding the cigar in his hand while he was at the bar. Okay. But he never puffed on it. He never puffed on
you never actually see him take a puff off of it. You just, that's right. Okay, wow. So I guess he is a smoker. I was wrong.
And I was wrong too, because when you think smoker, you're thinking puffing. Like we all say Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, we see him puffing on cigars. When I think of Troutman, I'm like, do you ever see him like puffing on a smoke?
Mm-hmm. It's what you remember, like you said, the little things that you remember, or that you think you remember, even that you see, but you're not sure. I guess he is a smoker, but you never actually see him.
We never see him smoke. Yeah. I wonder how many of our listeners with that episode got it wrong as well, because now we're 2 for 2, me and you. I think my co-host, he got it, Simon, he got it right, I believe, but I think he might have chosen, I can't remember his reasoning. I think he might have just said, I'm going to take a while. His thinking was, that's right, it's being asked because he is a smoker.
Oh, okay.
He took that angle. Like, he wasn't confident necessarily, but he was like, why is this question being asked if he's not a smoker?
There's like a psychology to it.
Yeah, almost. He took the psychology route behind that. Okay. That's cool. What is Rambo's reason for entering Hope? Finally, I get one.
Oh, his reason. Okay.
Yeah. He was looking for hookers. I think I did a meme a few years ago where it was the Rambo character walking in town, said, if you see this man enter your town, just give him a sandwich. It solves a lot of problems. Just give him a bite to eat. Let him move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. As Rambo walks into town, what do the 2 greeting signs on the Hope Archway say? Oh, look, we have it on our picture here on our backdrop here.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see it, so that's okay. I'm going to try to remember. Let me see.
Okay. So we have a bit of a cheat here. I apologize to Rocco.
No, that's okay. I really can't see it because I think our cameras are blocked. Well, actually, really? You know what? I take that back. It's blocking the part of the bottom sign, but the top one is.
Yeah, so there you go.
If you want to give me an extra question to cover, that's fine. I'll.
No, it's blocked for me as well, but I believe I know what it says underneath. So yeah, we have the top part. So again, for our audio listeners, what I'm referring to, we're recording on StreamYard, which goes onto YouTube for our visual people. Watch this on YouTube as well. I used the backdrop of the Rambo walking into town, and we see there, yes, gateway to Holiday Land. So we see it. So that's what I'm trying to show Rocco. But there's a sign that's hanging underneath that our cameras are blocking. I believe we'll just do that for the point there, Bill, because it's blocked for both of us. So if we both get that, yeah. All right, next question. Oh yeah, I guess we should say you probably may or may not remember, but yeah, this is my home province of Canada. I'm from British Columbia, Canada. So when I was a kid, we used to drive through Hope a lot because we'd have relatives who live in Alberta, which is the neighboring province to the east of British Columbia. So we drive through Hope all the time. And every time we drove through, of course, as kids, that's where Rambo is. We just got, to us, it was like Disneyland. It really was like Disneyland as kids.
That's very cool. I do remember you talking about that. You had actually visited it recently after starting your podcast, and I've seen videos on YouTube. Other people have taken trips up there, and maybe one day I'd like to come up there and just check it out, because it seems like a small town, but they embrace the connection to Rambo, and it would be cool to see the statues that they have up there, the carved statues they do. They have one of Rambo and I think one of Teasel up there.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick visit. People have made it from across the world. I'm not going to lie to you and say there's a lot to do. There are tours. Don't get me wrong. Sorry, I shouldn't undersell it, because the people that work there at the tourist industry there have really embraced it, like I said. And it is, if you're a Rambo nerd, it's your mecca of Rambo land. But it is a beautiful part of Canada. And if you go there in the summer, spring, like between May and June, maybe a little bit of July, because it can get pretty hot there too. It's a great part of Canada and the beautiful province. That's my home province. But I live, and I'm from Victoria, which is Vancouver Island. But anyways, yeah, we traveled to Ottawa, where I live now. I'm in the military, so our family traveled for the move for me to work here for a few years. But we're going to be going back in the summer 26 back to the island. And yeah, we'll be making our stop, of course. So we're going to have to make another stop. Yeah.
I've only been to Canada once, not a couple of years, more than a couple now. Feels like it was only a couple of years ago. But with my uncle, we took a trip to Montreal and Quebec.
I'm sorry.
So I'm not sure where that is in relation to Hope, if it's anywhere near there or not.
Well, no, it's the equivalent of, like, I'm only 5-hour drive north of New York right now, where I live right now. So to drive to where I am to Hope, it's like an 8-day drive. It's all across the country. So it's like driving from New York it's like driving from New York to Portland.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's like going across the country then.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I was nowhere near. I don't feel too bad about it that I missed.
But you missed it. You're in the right country.
Still a ways off from being anywhere near it, though.
Yeah. It's a healthy flight. Yeah, you'd have to fly. You could drive, but you just better plan a couple of weeks. Okay. All right. The next question.
Okay.
How much time does Lieutenant Clinton Morgan give Rambo to come out of his hiding place? Oh, yeah.
Well, I can hear his voice, too. There's two answers I'm thinking of that it could be. I'm trying to say, okay, I think I know what it is.
Now, I should give you bonus points if you say it properly, not just the time. No.
Got it. I'll take that.
Because I mentioned that in the first episode. Do you feel, Bill, that sequence of the National Guard was too goofy for the tone of the film?
I could see the necessity for it, because, I think if that had really happened, they probably would have brought in National Guard or reserve units to find this guy, or it would have been, who knows, it would have been the FBI, it would have been, who knows, they would have had like a huge, probably concerted effort. But they brought in the National Guard, and the guys that they brought out, not all of them, but the ones they focus on in the big scene are regular guys that work in town, and they're not full-time, so they're not really, I guess, too invested in it. And I guess they're a little goofy because they don't really take it seriously. It's like a trip to them almost, the way they seem when they're there. And they're being really loud too, yelling, talking to each other. And if this was the real deal, they'd probably be very quiet, because they don't want to give away their position. They don't want Rambo to know that they're there looking for him, but they're being real loud and they're taking photographs. And they do seem a little goofy, but not too much. Not so much that it was a good scene. It was a funny scene, like, in a way, but also it was interesting to move the plot along.
I agree with the civilian part of you. That's a good angle. I can appreciate that. They are reservists. We call them reservists here in Canada, meaning they might have other jobs. This is the weekend. That's why they're called weekend warriors. The idea that they are available for natural disasters or this kind of thing. And they're not Monday to Friday or 365 days a year. They're focused on military life, so to speak. They basically put on the uniform, not like a costume, but it's, oh, hey, we're on call. And like a volunteer fire department, almost like, oh, we have a fire, we better get dressed and go. So they were probably just excited, maybe giddy, that they get to do something in the small town where they, hey, we actually get to chase a bad guy. We got this crazy war veteran who's gone rogue. He's gone like anti-American, as they're thinking, or he's fighting the country. We got to take him down. So they probably got a little bit giddy. We talked about how they might be excited. That's fine, that they get to do something, and maybe careless with their excitement. But the whole give that man a cigar and I don't know, and then the bullseye is just
carnival or a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think they did that on purpose, though, to show you that they're a little inept at what they're doing because they don't take it seriously. They're not following exact protocol of how they would really approach a situation like that if it was anybody else. But yeah,
Well, mission accomplished. They showed it already. Mission accomplished.
they were a little goofy, but I could see why they put that in the movie. There was a reason why they did that.
I agree. It's 2/3 the way through the film. We're just nearing the end part where, Rambo destroys the town. So it's one last light moment before poop hits the fan. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay. What does Rambo say he uses his knife for? Great scene there when Teasel pulls him over and frisks him. And we'll talk about the answer when we get there. But okay. What is the name of the machine the police used to run Rambo's name? Aha! I remember talking about this on the show.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I know what we would call it today, probably, but they didn't call it that then, I don't think, or their machine was it. I think I have it.
Okay. We'll talk more about it with the answer because that's a fascinating piece of equipment. Okay. 29. When the sheriff asks Rambo, oh, there we go. When the sheriff asks Rambo what he hunts with his knife. Mm-hmm. Oh, Rocco gave away the answer there. That's okay. He doesn't know we're playing the game this way. Rocco doesn't know we're playing the game like he just thinks the person is going to answer the question and move on to the other. That's fine. So yeah, what does Rambo say he uses the knife for? Well, it's hunting, because number 29 is when the sheriff asks Rambo what he hunts with his knife, what is his answer?
Okay.
I hunt policemen. Tigers. Yeah. Hey, Mr. Tiger.
Okay. Got it.
Do you listen to my Rocky coverage episodes? Do you listen to those?
Actually, I found out about your Rocky podcast through the Rambo Series podcast. And when I did, I started to listen to it. And
nice.
I like to pretty much go from the beginning all the way. And it's going to take me, I don't know how long to get caught up on the Rocky series, but I did start with like your first episode of your first season and followed it through for a little bit. But like I say, I was listening to your Rambo series more regularly.
Come on, get on it, Bill. Get with it. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of the Rocky films, and I'm looking forward to listening to your Rocky series podcast.
I appreciate that. For those who are listening to this, I do a Rocky series podcast as well. Are you listening to the One More Round version?
It starts off with you and your brother.
Oh, you're listening to the first one. You're listening to Going the Distance.
I went right to the beginning, and I started.
Oh, wow.
It's you and your brother, and then I think as it went along, and I'm not too far along into it. I might be through the first film, and I think I'm into the Rocky 2 episodes, but you start bringing guests on at that point, I think. But it's always, I think, in the beginning, it's you and your brother, which I thought was really cool.
Those are the early days, my friend. So, Bill, you're really going back into the archives. So, again, if you're listening to this, you're like, I have a podcast right now that's currently being recorded with Katie and Kyle, my co-host for that, called One More Round, the Rocky Series podcast, which just means what it sounds like. I retired or finished the Rocky franchise with my brother and ended up with doing it with Katie and Kyle because my brother, spoiler alert, Bill, my brother's semi-retired. You ever think about retiring? And so my brother retired from podcasting. He tapped out. He had not in a bad way. His life got busy, just family, job, and he wanted me to continue. So basically Kyle came on as a co-host, and Katie, you'll see how that transitions when you listen. But anyways, I say all that because when I was done, I had a good time with Katie and Kyle, and they were bringing on fresh new perspectives. And I'm like, I feel bad for them. They never got to start at the beginning. So I'm like, fine, I'll do it one more time. So that's why I started the One More Round, the Rocky Series podcast, because I got to do with them again. So that's what started this journey with the Rambo. I was like, oh man, it's done. But I feel like there's more to say. And that's why we're doing the Nothing Is Over version of It's a Long Road. Boy, those first episodes with my brother, they're terrible. I'm surprised you got through them.
For me, it's cool because it's like, you're sitting around, you're sitting in your living room, or you're sitting with your friends, or you're sitting with your family, and you're just talking about the movies that you love. And I do that with my uncle all the time. We're always throwing lines from movies back and forth to each other, and movies we've seen a million times. And we'll reference things, and nobody understands what we're referencing but us sometimes. But
I get it.
That's the feel I like about your show, is that with all your guests, it's so conversational and it's very organic and natural. It's not like you're looking at a script. You're just talking and having a conversation and hanging. It's almost like you're just hanging out with your friends or with your family, like I say, and you're just talking about the movies you guys love, which is great.
Yeah, there's no script. It's very obvious we're not prepared for anything. All right, last question. Okay. True or false? Does Troutman say Rambo is trained to eat things that would make a sheep puke?
Okay.
All right. Funny. Okay. Drum roll, please. Here we go with the answers.
All right.
Okay. So, what did you get for number 21? According to the sheriff, what was Rambo charged with?
Okay, so he was charged with vagrancy, resisting arrest, and carrying a concealed weapon.
What do you got?
I want you to book this gentleman for vagrancy, resisting arrest, carrying a concealed weapon.
Bingo. And you got it in the right order, too. Good job. That's what I wrote as well. I almost just put vagrancy, but I was like, oh, yeah. As I was talking through the scene, I was like, oh, yeah. Teasel went on. He goes, I want you to book him. Because I think they're trying to run the gamut on him at that time. Book him for
they're throwing the book at him because he doesn't like him from the jump as soon as he runs into him. And so he's just charging him with anything he can charge him with legitimately, but still he could have gave him a break on a couple of things, but ultimately
charge him for long hair.
Yeah, needing a bath and a haircut.
All right. Oh, I got it. What direction?
All right.
Please believe Rambo's hiding in.
Honestly, I couldn't remember at all, and I just took a guess. I'm going to say northeast.
Oh, you're halfway there, brother. Northwest.
That's it. But they don't want any more trouble. He's northwest.
Oh, no.
You just sent the National Guard in the wrong direction. It's like a role-playing game. You sent the National Guard in the wrong direction. Rambo escapes, kills everyone in town. Okay.
Oh, no.
All right. I'm 2 for 2. Where was Troutman before he came to help locate Rambo? Now, this is the one. Shite. I changed my answer because I got it wrong. This just proves to my listeners and to you, Bill, that I never cheat because I put down Fort Bragg first. Now, that is the answer. Now, before I tell you how I got there, I thought Troutman said when they were having the conversation, I know Rambo said, hey, I went to go visit you at blank and you weren't there. And then Troutman says, that's because I was blank. I thought Rambo said I came to visit you in Fort Bragg.
Yeah, he said I tried to get in touch with you, but the guys at Bragg never knew where to find you.
Yeah, the guys at Bragg never knew where to find you. Exactly. And then I thought he said I was in Washington.
He must have gone to Fort Bragg to find him and didn't find him there. And I don't know why they didn't know where he was because he's a colonel. You'd think they'd know where he was unless it was.
That was back before emails and cell phones. You can sneak away a little bit easier probably back then.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. The good old days.
The good old days. I put Fort Bragg, but then I overthought it and I wrote down Washington because I thought he said, my mind was like, Rambo says, I came to Fort Bragg. They didn't know where you were. And then Troutman said, because I was in Washington. I don't know why my brain went there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He says for my answer, I wrote, he said, I've been in DC. I'm shining a seat with my ass or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Where'd you come from, sir?
Bragg.
I tried to get in touch with you, but the guys at Bragg never knew where to find you.
Yeah, well, I haven't been spending much time there lately. They've got me down in D.C. I'm shining a seat with my ass.
So that's what's confusing to me. So I'm not trying to steal a point here. Where was Troutman before he came to help locate Rambo? So that's
I think you're right, though. Ultimately, he was in Washington.
I'm gonna have to revisit that scene. The answer is Fort Bragg, and I love Rocco, but we did this trivia journey with the One More Round podcast, just FYI. So that's how and there was questions that young Rocco got wrong that we proved with the film. So this one's tricky because it's the wording. I know the problem is Troutman was in Fort Bragg at some point. Yes, you could argue before he came to find
stationed there, and then for whatever reason he went to DC. And
that's the argument you could put in court. You're right that he was stationed in Fort Bragg, but during Rambo's inquiry of where Troutman was, it was at that time that he was in DC. But the term polishing a seat for some would indicate that he's sitting there for a while.
Yeah, he's sitting at a desk, so he's not out in the field. He's not, I guess, doing stuff with his men. I said Washington D.C. You said Fort Bragg. Rocco says Fort Bragg, but that's what I thought. That's what I mean. My brain went. He wasn't there because he was somewhere else afterwards. In a way, I guess you'd say both answers are correct, but I would say, D.C. is. I think your answer is correct. D.C. is where he was the latest, or where he was the most recent before coming to.
Yeah. I think, you know what? This is a mulligan. We're going to call this a mulligan. We both got it right. Because he was in both places. Whether or not he was stationed or it doesn't matter. Like at some point, he was there physically at some point before he came to rescue Rambo. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The next question. This is easy. What was the reason? I didn't even write it down for entering Hope? Why did he come to Hope?
He had to find Delmar Berry. He was looking for his friend.
Oh, okay. No, sorry, it might be you're thinking too.
That was a different town that he was in. I always thought it was the same town, and then he wandered around a little bit, but maybe that was...
Let's argue, what was his purpose for crossing the boundary of Hope when he walked in?
I guess he was just passing through. At one point, he asks the sheriff, "Do you have any place I can eat around here?"
You got some place I can eat around here?
There's a diner about 30 miles up the highway.
There you go. There's your answer. I think
he's just passing through. I don't think he was there for any particular reason.
That's very astute type thinking. In theory, you're right. Had Teasel not even pulled him over, we could argue, would he have stopped to eat? Was he just saying that just to say, I'm just looking for something to eat? Was that really why he was there? Yeah.
I think he was legitimately looking for somewhere to get a bite to eat because he was probably really hungry. He's been living.
Probably.
And who knows what kind of food he comes across, but
yeah, it's interesting. I never even considered the answer at the beginning because I just thought that's the whole joke is like, just give this guy something to eat. Because you're right, though. He was there to see his friend, but where that location was, we're never really told. Like, it's definitely in that area, but he walks from that house to the inner city limits of Hope.
Yeah, now that I think of it, they do separate that with him wandering and walking down the highway, and you can tell he's gone a long distance, and then he shows up in Hope. So yeah, I guess it is a town. So
look at me being nice to you. Look at me being nice to the guest because I knew that's what you would know, but that's logistics. So you were answering like, why is he in the geographical area? Yeah, to find an old friend, but why did he go to Hope? We all know to get something to eat. Okay. All right. The next one, of course, we got the first one is what's on the sign as you enter Hope. And we see it again on our YouTube channel. You can see that we have the answer: Gateway to Holiday Land. Mm-hmm. But what is underneath?
I think it just says "Welcome to Hope."
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
And next question. How much time does Lieutenant Clinton Morgan give Rambo to come out of his hiding place?
Okay, so I was torn between two answers because I could hear his voice as soon as you said, his name.
You got to pick one.
I wrote my answer. I did pick one, and I believe he said, "Rambo, I'm going to give you exactly 60 seconds to come on out."
Close. Yeah, you're right about the 6 and 0. That's the military way of answering, but it's 30 seconds.
Now I'm giving you just 30 seconds to come on out.
Oh, that was the other answer I was torn on. I was 0 or 60. Did he give him 30 seconds or a full minute? Because it felt longer than 30 seconds. Before
Who's got the bazooka? Who's got the bazooka? Yeah. So I'm giving you exactly 30 seconds. That's right. Of course, I know you have this one. What does Rambo say he uses the knife for? Of course, hunting.
Why would you be carrying a knife like this?
Hunting.
All right. Now, let's see what you wrote for 28. What is the name of the machine the police used to run Rambo's name?
It's called the teletype.
Yes, you got it, brother.
Listen, Will, you sure picked one hell of a guy to mess around with. Just came over the teletype a few minutes ago.
Okay, when Teasel asked Rambo what he hunts with his knife, what's the answer?
Name it.
What do you hunt with a knife?
Name it.
There you go. That's a great line. If I was to write this film and I was given the task to answer Rambo's question, I don't even know if I would have come up. Maybe I would have come up with anything or something to that effect, but the two words "name it," that's a great answer.
Yeah, because it's very short and it leaves a lot of things open. What is he hunting out there? What is he going after? He's got a little bit of an attitude because he's frustrated with the situation. Sure. So he's going to try to maybe give it back to him a little bit. And so that's a smart answer to give.
I don't remember his answer to that, but he didn't like that answer. He's got a tough guy here type thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, last question. True or false? I think you've got this one. When Troutman says Rambo's trying to eat things that make a sheep puke, what was the answer?
That is false. It wasn't a sheep. He said he was trained to live off the land and to eat things that would make a billy goat puke.
To live off the land. To eat things that would make a billy goat puke.
Exactly. Now that I have you here, I should just do this right now. What is your score? Which ones did you get wrong?
I got the question of why was he in Hope. I got that wrong because I thought.
Oh, no, we gave that to you.
Okay, so then that one's correct. Oh, then I guess I got the 60 seconds was my answer. That was wrong.
Yeah.
And I got the direction wrong, that he was we were looking for him in. So maybe was it just the 2 then? I guess it.
Yeah, I think got 8 out of 10.
So yeah, okay.
You only got 2 wrong. Look, I got to fight for my marks here because I got destroyed in the first 2 rounds. So I think I'm making a little bit of ground. I got all 10 right on this one. I can't believe
Wow,
it.
that's great.
These were a little bit easier. I'm not just saying yay me, but like I said, when you listen to episode 2, you'll see why. I'll be curious to hear what your personal score was when you listen to that episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely.
Yeah, let me know. Okay, there you go, folks. That is episode or part 3 of First Blood. Nothing is over. This was a fun revisit again of this wonderful film, and to have you on, Bill, was an absolute joy and pleasure. And I hope you had fun being on the show.
I did. I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
Sometimes people plug things or have anything that they want to shout out to or anything like that. Or...
No plugs or anything, but I do want to just thank you for having me on. And if or when the opportunity ever comes up, I'd be more than happy to come on again if you'd have me. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Absolutely. And I said this to the other 2 guests, of course, that if you don't come back, it's not because I didn't want you back. I might not need everyone to come back twice. I've almost got every slot filled up. But yeah, absolutely, Bill. I would love to have you on again. I never thought
I'd be on a podcast ever. So this is a huge moment for me. Just this alone. If it ever happens again, it's a bonus. But but it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
So again, Bill, thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure to meeting you and having you on this episode. But unfortunately, this episode is over.
Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.